Hare Krishna. Everyone's here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You're welcome, Prabhu.
Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayham Dadati Sapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitanscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare Grantaraja Shamad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Srinidhi Gaura Premanandi Hare Hare Gaura. Just give me a minute, Prabhu. I get my Bhagavatam from my car. Here.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, everyone's ready?
Yeah.
I'm the one. Where are the other devotees, Sharika?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. You're welcome to.
Krishna, Baba.
Yeah, I'm sorry despite all of the announcements, most of the students are not here. And I've just contacted Chaitanya Prema Prabhu to try to coordinate and call them one by one.
Okay.
Tell you guys advancing so strongly.
Okay. Actually, I've got few as well. I'm going to be struggling a bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but it's okay. Things have to go on.
Sorry.
Okay, so we start with chapter 13, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it's unit 11. No.
Yes.
Unit.
Yes.
Yeah,
11.
Prabhu, if I can make a request, Prabhu.
What?
Yeah, I know you've given us the overview of the chapter 3, but if you could just give us a kind of an summary overview of chapter 12, then we can enter into the chapter 13 with that mode.
Okay.
From your perspectives, yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're waiting for Rasavan. He's always late. And some other devotees there. You have actually 6 following or 7?
We have 7 who have been regular, but I'm surprised that only 3 of us are here. But I'm trying to make contact and find out why they're not here.
So the previous the chapter 11 was a calculation of time. It was a very technical chapter where it was only explaining about the different measurements of time from the Truti, from the smallest element of time, right? Even smaller than the Truti was Paramanu, the time that will take the sun to cover the Paramanu, the smallest indivisible atom. And then Anu, Trisharenu, and Truti. So this was measurement of time all the way up to Kalpa. What's a Kalpa? So on and so forth, right? So that was there. Now, P12 is actually still doing Visharga here. We are still in the platform of Visharga. Why? Because it is a creation of different Manasaputras of Lord Brahma. The creation of different Manasaputras of Lord Brahma, starting with Kumaras and others. And why this is because this is a stage of Visharga. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur very rightly points out that 3rd, 4th canto is Visharga, Sarga Visharga. Because you see that's what's happening here. Brahmaji is creating from his Manasaputras, then he gets Lord Shiva, then he got Lord Brahma, then Lord Brahma, he gets the Kumaras, then he gets Lord Shiva, and then, so on and so forth. And then Narad Muni. And then he does have some little issues with Rudra, for example. He was born from Brahma's anger, and Brahma was disrespected. And then Rudra's progeny was devouring everything. Brahma was disturbed. So Brahma told Rudra to stop creation and do penance. So he became Yogishwara, the Ishwara of all yogis. And then 10 sons of Brahma, headed by Marichi, Kardama, etc., they came forward. Right? So this was up to the middle, almost up to up to text 20, Brahma told Rudra to stop creation and do penance. The first part of this chapter 12 is very interesting and is deeply philosophical, especially the text 2. The text 2, which says, it was important that Lord Brahma, he creates ignorance. So Brahma first create ignorance. Chapter 12, text 1 to 3. Now, why does he have to create ignorance? Because the jiva, being spiritual, he has to be able to forget his real identity as the eternal servant of Lord Krishna. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to live in the material conditions of life. Now, you might say, but haven't they already forgotten? Yes, they have forgotten, but then when they go to Shishupti, when they go in the body of Lord Vishnu, there's no modes there. There's no ignorance that covering them. In the body of Lord Vishnu, they are threadbare, right? So then Lord Brahma, he covers them by creating avidya. So he creates these 5 different types of jnana vritti. Ajnana vritti, covering. Vritti means mental covering or coverings. So he creates tamaha, which is a darkness in self-knowledge or self-deceptions. That means ignorance of swarupa. Then illusory, then that's the first thing he creates. Then he creates moha. So first, we self-deceiving ourselves that I am not this, I am not soul, I am something else. Self-deception is called tamaha. Then moha, illusory bodily conception. So we forget our real identity, our spirit soul. Then maha moha. Then from forgetting one's real identity, then the sense of proprietorship of objects that we can enjoy is called maha moha, which means first we develop ignorance of swarupa, then forgetfulness of swarupa, of identity. Then we develop possessive, okay, this is me, mine. Then there is tamishram, which means the result of this desire to enjoy, which is anger from frustration of one's enjoyment being obstructed. So he creates all these things. And then under tamishram, whereas almost being jiva conscious all the time, he creates a sense of death, unconscious state brought about by sense of death. Like someone gets really mad, angry, he doesn't realize what he's doing. This is called under tamishram. So that was covered Brahma's first create ignorance, and he creates them in 5 different levels: tamaha, moha, maha moha, tamishram, under tamishram. That was verses 1, 2, and 3. Right? So then he was not very happy. Lord Brahma was not very happy with this. He says, what am I doing? What am I doing? This is sinful. Putting the jivas in ignorance. So his job, Rajogun job, is not always very nice. It has a sense of feeling displeased and guilty. And we all know that. In the mode of ignorance, we don't care. In the mode of passion, we do something and we say, God, why did I do? Why did I do? Right? We act like that, right? Those who have some conscience will think, why did I do that? Just for a little bit of flickering happiness, I broke principles, I ate this and I did that. So whatever, right? So he was upset, he was displeased. So he went on to meditate. And that subtle body of Lord Brahma, he kind of abandoned that nasty body, because his body is different layers, so to speak. So he abandoned that, he displeased, he purified his mind. And then when we say Lord Brahma, from his body, which means his mental vritti, His mind, his subtle body, he creates something, like that. So seeing the sinful nature of his creation, Tutpapyasham Shrishtim, he was displeased and he went to purify his consciousness, his mind, and then he went on again, began the creation. Then you will see that the creation, then when his mind was in the pure state, he was very purified, he was happy, he was... then the first thing that came out were the 4 Kumaras. 4 Kumaras were considered to be the most senior personalities in the universe, and they were very, very incredible persons of the highest caliber. The 4 of them represented Sankhya, Yoga, Vairagya, and Tapasya. One of them represented Sankhya, which means Jnana. The second one represented Yoga. Third one represented renunciation. And the 4th one represented Tapasya. Sanaka, Sanandan, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar. So since Vidya is used without Bhakti, Bhakti also is present in them, but this is a secondary item. So that he didn't create Bhakti right there, but he created these elements of Tapasya, Vairagya, Sankhya, and Yoga. And these 4 boys, collectively, they were in charge of these, but each one specialized in one thing. So Brahma, he asked the Kumaras to create progeny. He said, come on now, boys, be good boys to your Pita, do something for me now. Help me with this Visharga thing. Right? But then they refused. They were devoted to Lord Vasudeva, they were Vasudeva Parayana. And they aimed only at liberation, which means activities in Sattva Gun. So they disrespected, and thus he was disrespected by his son. And then Brahma was angered, so he tried to control his anger. But despite his effort to control his anger was transformed and it came out. Sometimes we see when we are angry, we say I see red and blue. So he saw red and blue. Combination of red and blue is actually Lord Shiva. So passion and ignorance. So Nila Lohita. Okay. So he saw red and blue. So that came out, Lord Shiva, Lord Rudra came out of his eyebrow crying. So the child cried, "Oh destiny, oh teacher of the universe, please designate." He said, "Give me my place and give me my name and place." Because this is Visharga. Visharga means everything is happening now. It's unfolding. All the elements have been given. It's like the building. The universe is unfolding nicely, right? So he asked for his place and name and place. So Brahma pacified him, accepting his request, and he said, "Oh, best of the demigods," because he said, "Your name will be Rudra." So he gave him his name, and he said, "I." Rasavan Prabhu, can you mute, my dear friend? Or Madhavan, mute. Make me the Supreme Controller, Shalika. Supreme Controller of these 6 screens. Yeah, thank you. So, so he selected 11 places. Ekadasha Rudra. So 11 places, 11 residents of Rudra principles of anger. So the egocentricity of the heart is a place of anger. The senses, the anger in the heart is manifest through the senses. The anger. First, egocentricity is an anger. So anger. First, egocentricity, you will see that actually. So in a way, Lord Shiva, he comes out from Sankarshan. And Sankarshan is a deity of Ahankar. Right? So then first anger, the egocentricity of the heart, then from the egocentricity of the heart, there is the anger in the heart that is manifested through the senses. So senses, the air of life, right? In the air of life also there's Rudra, because an angry man, he will breathe, he will hiss like a snake. And sky, why? The dense clouds that rose in anger, it's a Rudra principle. Air, wind that blows very fiercely like cyclonic winds or tornadoes, this is the Rudra principle. Because it's destructive, Lord Rudra, he destroys. And water, flood, seawater infuriated by winds or floods and tsunamis, they are actually Rudra principle. Anything extreme that destructive in the elements. Fire, it's a blaze, fire. Uncontrollable fire is a place where Rudra resides. Then earth, earth also, when you have earthquakes, sometimes earth can transform into weapon, destructive, mudslides and everything else. So then you have sun. Extreme heat from the sun can kill someone, or hot sun can torch and burn the surface of any planet. That's also the Rudra principle. Extreme. And the moon, extreme cold can lead to collapse, and cold is regulated by moon. So that also is the extreme principle. Anything extreme in the elements, the manifestation of the Rudra principle in there. And austerity. Now, how come austerity? How can austerity be Rudra principle? Anyone?
Hare Krishna.
One, Prabhu.
Yes, one can perform austerity purposely for destructive purposes.
Give an example of someone doing that.
Like that of Hiranyakashipu.
Yes, very good. So yogis, without devotion, philosophers renunciate performing austerities for destruction. Okay. So you have 11 names. So then he gives them 11 different, consorts. Okay, accept these places and wives and create progeny on the large scale. So because he gave the 11 Rudras 11 different consorts, then they could actually create man in the creation, man and woman combined for further creation. So Rudra and the different female consorts, they combine together, the Rudranis we call them, and they create something. But then these creations of Lord Shiva, right? They were in the same strength, same form, and also the same nature, Swabhav, as him. So very destructive. So then the unlimited progeny created by Rudra attempted to devour the entire universe. So then to devour the entire universe means that as far as Brahma was trying to create, they were trying to destroy. So he said, this is hardly helping me. Okay, so Brahma and Rudra, there's no need to create such living entities who are devastating everything. And they're even attacking me. Because the intense product of ignorance and passion. So, so he said, please stop this. And then Rudra retired himself to the forest to do yoga. Okay. So then the next section is manifestation from the body and the mind of Brahma, right? So depending on the part of the body, the best part of the body produce the best personalities. So the best part of our system is good deliberation. If we can deliberate very nicely, weighing all the pros and cons, and then come up with something nice. So the best part of his mind, which is deliberation, created Lord Narad Muni. Then Vashishta was created out of his breathing.
Sorry.
Then Daksha was created out of his thumb. You have this table, yeah? Yeah, okay. If you don't, I can send it.
Yeah.
You don't have?
Yeah.
You have?
Maybe for the benefit of everyone, you can share, Prabhu. I have one.
Yes.
I downloaded from internet, but I don't know.
Okay, you have it in front of you, all of you.
It should be shared to us.
I've already sent it to all of you on Swadhyay. Okay. Okay. So,
Okay, thank you.
yes. So you will see that the dharma, adharma also is created by him. He shed different parts of his body to create this. So then you will see that in text 26, there is different things that instigate adharma. Adharma means non-religious principles. All right. Then he creates Kardama. He creates Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni is an essential part of it here. It's good to have a revision like that, you know. So Kardama Muni is like a shadow of Lord Brahma. In text 27, you will see, husband of the great Devahuti was manifested from the shadow of Brahma. Thus all became manifest from either the body or the mind of Brahma. That is explained in text 27. Kardama Muni is specifically mentioned because Kardama Muni was born out of the mode of goodness. Brahma and Narada was born out of the mode of transcendence, transcendental state of Lord Brahma. But Kardama Muni, he married then Devahuti. And from them, from Kardama and Devahuti, there were the progeny such as Uttanapad, Priyavrata, and then the free girls, Akuti, Prashruti, and Devahuti. And then they married the different sages. And therefore the Visharga was well on its way, nicely. So that's why it's mentioned here. Okay, then there was a small period where there was some confusion. Lord Brahma created a female form called Vak, which is explained but 6 verses 28 to 33. Okay, and he was attracted to this form because it was never something that was interesting, so he was attracted. But then he was challenged by his own sons. So then Brahma was ashamed of his act, and therefore he gave up his body, which he gave up his mentality, because he's all subtle body. So he gave up that one subtle body, right? So like that, you have the Vak episode. Then Brahma's further creation. Right? Yes.
Yeah, I would just want to get some your insight into a subject matter. Lord Brahma's creation. It is said, and we see that also in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The chest of the Lord Brahma's creation is from the chest he created religion, Dharma, and from his back, Adharma. And when we look at the historical scriptures of the Western philosophies, the Jewish, the Brahminic religion, the father of that religion, which bring about the principles of religion for that part, saw the back of the Lord. So could we say that the Western philosophy or religion is of the mode of ignorance?
No. Why would it be the mode of ignorance?
Yeah, because it is said that, okay, Moses is the father figure of the principles of religion according to the Western philosophy, because he gave some religious principles as he received them, but he himself has the vision of the back of the Lord. So, based on
say anything about this, Sarika? Prabhupada say anything about this? Because it would become adharma. It could be religious principles in the mode of ignorance. Because we will see text 29, even devotional service in the mode of ignorance. Could be principles of dharma, the idea of worshipping the Lord, but tinged with modes and desires separate from the desires of the Lord. But we couldn't say adharma. Lord Jesus Christ didn't come to give adharma. No Islamic culture doesn't want to give adharma. They want to enlighten people, but they just do it from the very lowest rung of the ladder.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that, could we say that this dharma or religious principles given are of a lower modes? Because sometimes we classify religions to be in goodness, passion, and ignorance, and they will say transcendental religious principles, Bhakti. So
you could say that. You could say that they're not transcendental, but it also depends on the performer, and also depends on the motive of the performer. If the performer is sattvic, and his motive is to please God, really appreciate the grandeur, the greatness of Lord Jesus Christ, and he follows principles and everything, and he says God is great, and he's completely surrendered to his will, and is to want to follow Jesus Christ, sees him as his savior and guardian, then very much dependent on the individual. Because even in our dharma, Sanatana dharma, you know, some people are worshipping in the mode of ignorance, but even though it gives the highest. So we can move on, right?
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah, okay. So the creation, then the Brahma's further creation. Okay. Then he creates the four Vedas. Then he creates the four Vedas. Then he creates the Upavedas, the Panchama Veda, and the different religious sacrifices. Okay, so this is two things. So I've sent that to them, to all of you, so you can see that. Then you have that summary, it makes nice. Then this essentially now covered, and you have it in front of you. Yeah.
These pictures, are they from Bhakti Sandhava?
From Subodhini.
Subodhini, okay.
About Subodhini. So then I've got 2 pages which covers, which I've sent you the last 2 pictures, text 34 to 49, Brahma's further creation. Okay, it's a little bit technical and detailed, but you have it in front of you. Even if you go over the purports and verses, it will be hard to, so you can use this picture. You can make it nice. I haven't done it very nicely. Maybe the first one I'll do it more nicely. This one. Yeah, this one is better. Okay. So 34 to 44. Then he creates the different types of varnas. They create the different legs of dharma, then the 4 ashrams, then the different types of brahmacharis, then the different types of grihasthas, the different types of vanaprasthas, the different types of sannyasis. Then he creates the arts and sciences and celebrated hymns, which is text 44. Okay. Then further on, this is another one. One of the pictures you have to delete. You will figure it out because I can be. So then this is the last part. Okay, no, not good. Okay. So then you have the whole chapter in front of you. This is that particularly requires this information, bro. Okay, so there you are. So here you will see that the Vedic meters, verse writing, the different types of literary expression, Gayatri, Trishub, Anushtup. These are different compositions of Vedic hymns. Like most verses in Bhagavad Gita is Anushtup Chanda. 32 syllables in 4 different lines, so 8 syllables each line. And Jagati, 48 syllables, sometimes 48 divided by 4 verses, 4 lines of 12 verses, and so on. So he creates all these. So then he creates audible sounds, and then the creation of, now let's go to the last part, 50 to 57. So seeing that the creation by the powerful sages did not sufficiently, give me a minute.
Radha Krishna Padaravinda Adala Nande Namakalika Vande Sanatana Prabhupada Veera, Veera, Janapriya, Chaitanya,
Hare Krishna. Okay. All right, sorry about this. So the creation of Swayambhuva and Satarupa. So that was a turning point, so to speak. So the first creation of Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, And because Lord Brahma was reflecting that the population, this is Visharga still. You see, that's why third canto is not going very sufficiently satisfactorily, according to him. So therefore, he was deliberating. Then two forms came out. He was deliberating. So he was thinking pros and cons, which is the best part of his mind again. Then two good personalities came out, generated from his body. And they are still considered to be Brahma's kaya. Kaya means body. And one person was Swayambhuva Manu and the other person was Satarupa. Okay? So there was Swayambhuva Manu and his queen Satarupa. So they gradually increased the population of the universe. Right? So then in due course, they had 5 children, Priyavrata, Uttanapat, Akuti, Devahuti, Prashuti, 3 daughters. Then Akuti was married to certain sage, Devahuti, Akuti was married to Ruchi, Devahuti was married to Kardama, and Prashuti was married to Daksha. And they increased the population nicely. Right? So you will see that this is the last part of chapter 12. Then the appearance of Lord Varaha, chapter 13. Right? So in here, Vidura, this is again Vidura Maitreya Samvad, the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya, this question and answers going on. And Sukadeva Goswami is narrating this question and answer sessions and he's explaining everything what's going on. So at this point then, let us see how this chapter starts. So is this clear so far?
Yes.
Okay. So you see the connection? All right. So now we start with text 1 of chapter 13, the appearance of Lord Varaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayam Mutirayet. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Neshtiki. Grantarada Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So text 1. Sri Sukha Uvacha Nishamya Vacham Vadato Mune Punyatamam Ripa Bhuya Prapracha Kauravyo Vasudeva Kathadritam. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, after hearing all these most virtuous topics from the sage Maitreya, Vidura inquired further on the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which he adored to hear. So Vidura is further inquiring on topics of the Supreme Lord, and he is happy to hear, and Maitreya is still explaining, and Shukadeva Goswami is saying that to Parikshit Maharaj. Okay, so text 2. Vidura uvacha savai swayambhuva shamrat priya putra swayambhuvo pratilabhya priyam patnim kimcha karatato mune. So Vidura is said, asking, he said, O great sage, what did Swayambhuva, the dear son of Lord Brahma, do after obtaining his very loving wife, who is called Satarupa? You know that, right? So text 3. Charitam tasya rajarse radhirajasya satama bruhimeshadhanasya vishwaksenashrayo hiso. O best of the virtuous, the original king of kings, Manu, was a great devotee or personality of Godhead Hari. This is our same Swayambhuva Manu, he is considered Mahajan. Okay, you all together on this, right? He is a Mahajan. Was a great devotee of the personality of Lord Hari and thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. So please describe them. Vidura is asking, Maitreya, my dear Gurudev, please describe them to me. I'm very eager to hear. So, purport. Srila Prabhupada is explaining a small purport, 4 lines. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. Sometimes someone asks you, what is the description? What is the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam? You can actually say Srimad Bhagavatam means the beautiful story or the beautiful stories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees, because this is what it is. So it is the absolute world. There's no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee. Therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of the pure devotee have the same result, which means we actually have bhakti in our heart. Text 4. Shrutasya pumsam suchira sramasya nanvanjasa suribhiradito viritha tattadgunashu shravana mukunda padaravindam hridayeshu yesham. Persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouth of pure devotees, about the character and activities of pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within the hearts of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, who was his devotees' liberation. So important that when we ask a question about the Supreme Lord, we also ask questions about the pure devotees from the spiritual master. And when we do talk about the devotees of Krishna in our lives, actually this is very, very satisfying. It's very satisfying to talk about the pure devotees, inquire about the pure devotees. So Vidura is saying to Maitreya that when we hear from the spiritual master, we also inquire to hear about the other pure devotees of the Lord from the spiritual master. And this is the same and very satisfying to the heart. Okay? Why? Because such pure devotees are glorious as the Lord. So we not only hear the transcendental activities of the Lord, but also the transcendental qualities of the devotees. Because a pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So text 5. Okay. Then Shuka Goswami, Suta Goswami bring his point. Iti bruvanam viduram vinintam sahasranirnas charanapadanam pradhishtaro ma bhagavat kathayam praniyamano munirabhyas abhyachasta. Shukadeva Goswami said, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, was pleased to place his lotus feet on the lap of Vidura. Because Vidura was very meek and gentle. So after Vidura asked this beautiful question about wanting to know about the devotees of Krishna, then Sukadeva Goswami is relating how the Supreme Lord also was very happy with Vidura. Remember, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna used to visit the home of Vidura. So the sage Maitreya was very pleased with Vidura's words, and being influenced by his spirit, he attempted to speak. So also there is this very interesting incident being narrated that Krishna was also pleased to place his lotus feet on the lap of Vidura. Right? So here, the purport. Sahasra Sirsha is very significant. This Sahasra Sirsha means one who has diverse energies and activities. And this is applicable only to Lord Sri Krishna and no one else. Sahasra Sirsha. Sahasra means thousands or various, diverse. And Sirishnaha means different activities. So the different energies and different activities of the Lord are only related to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, no one else. So Maitreya being inspired by the thought of Vidura, because Vidura was also very good company, very good association, having known Sri Krishna personally. Or you remember that episode where Maitreya came to see Krishna in Prabhasha, just by the will of Providence. And Lord Sri Krishna was with Uddhava. And then Lord Sri Krishna also received Maitreya. But he was talking to Uddhava, and Maitreya was also hearing. But the level of intimate reciprocation with Uddhava was far greater between Lord Krishna and Uddhava than with Maitreya. So when we analyze that, Vidura had very intimate relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, when he visited Hastinapur in the time where the house of Dhritarashtra were running Bharatvarsha. They were in charge of Bharatvarsha. So the personality of Godhead was pleased, and sometimes he would dine with Vidura at his home, and while resting, he placed his lotus feet on the lap of Vidura. So sometimes when you're resting, you put your head there and somebody is sitting at your feet or something. Then you put your feet on the lap of the person, because that's what Lord Krishna was doing to Vidura. That's such a wonderful thing. So thinking about that, Maitreya was inspired by the thought of Vidura's wonderful fortune. And the hairs of his body stood on end, and he was pleased. So Maitreya became completely ecstatic hearing about this, or thinking about this. And he started to narrate the topics of personality of Godhead with great delight. So then Maitreya Uvacha, right? So I hope you get this, the scene setting, the setting of the scene. Okay. So Maitreya Uvacha. Yes, Prabhu?
Yes, the intimacy of Vidura with Krishna. So that's it gives us a momentum or encouragement to enlighten Vidura
Very
more.
good. I can't hear you. I can't understand.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't understand.
I'll rephrase it. Just go ahead.
Okay. Okay, what I'm only saying is that because of the intimacy between Vidura and Krishna, when Maitreya reflected on it, that gives him more impetus to want to speak. And then he saw Vidura as a very good, wonderful association. So,
Okay.
that's the scenario.
What Prabhu is saying is that because of the intimacy of Vidura with Lord Krishna, that reflection inspires Maitreya Muni to want to speak.
Yes. So sometimes we may wonder, but the principle is always, someone may be quite advanced and have good association, but the principle is always, we have to accept a spiritual master. So Vidura did accept a spiritual master. Just like Lord Chaitanya was very, very powerful, grammarian and logician, and Mukunda Dutt and Gadadhar was saying, if he ever became a devotee, it'd be so great. The transformation of Lord Chaitanya only came when he met his spiritual master. Right? So the process doesn't waver. So the process stays the process, because the process is established in Vedas, the Vedic literatures, and Shruti and Shastra. So it's still Vidura, he may have more intimate association than even Maitreya did, but he still had to go and learn about the Supreme Lord from spiritual master. So text 7. After his appearance, the sage Maitreya to Vidura, Maitreya Uvacha, Yadha Sabharyai Sardham Jhata Swayambhuvo Manu Pranjali Pranatas Chedam Veda Garbham Abhashata. The sage Maitreya said to Vidura, after his appearance, Manu, the father of mankind, along with his wife, thus addressed the reservoir of Vedic wisdom, Lord Brahma. So here is carrying on the narration of, that was the last part of, you see how it is. It's good that you understand that structure. The last part of chapter 12 was the appearance of Swayambhuva and Satarupa. Then the narration carried on between Maitreya and Vidura. And Sukadeva Goswami is saying this is going on, and they are talking, and Vidura is very inspiring Maitreya to speak. So they were speaking about this, and therefore now the Maitreya is saying to Vidura the description of the devotee of the Lord, which is Swayambhuva and Satarupa. So he said, after his appearance, Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, the father of mankind, along with his wife Satarupa, right? We know that. Thus, addressed the reservoir of Vedic wisdom. Who is the reservoir of Vedic wisdom? Lord Brahma. And with obeisances and folded hands. So text 7. Tadekam sarva bhutanam janma vritridapita tathapi na prajanam te sushrusha kena bhavet. You are the father of all living entities and the source of their subsistence, because they are all born of you. Please order us how we may be able to render service unto you. So that's a good boy. He is a very good son for his father. So he says, you're the father of all living entities, because he's creating this living entity's body. And he's the source of the subsistence. Why? Because he's creating the living entities, and he's also creating, given the different positions for the subsistence and their residence, he's also giving facilities for them to be able to carry on grains and production of grains and so on. So he's also actually giving them possibility of subsistence, because he's like the father. So just like the father brings to the world his children, he actually labors hard for maintaining the children. So in the same way, Swayambhuva Manu is addressing Lord Brahma in such a manner that you're the father and you're providing places of residence, but you're also providing subsistence to them. So because you're doing that, he said, therefore, please order us, and we may be able to render some service unto you. Right? So Srila Prabhupada talks about the son's duty in this purport. Right? So he said the son's duty is to not only to make the father the source of supply of all his needs, which generally all fathers do, even in the animal kingdom. Some fathers, some mothers, they actually, depending on the species, they nourish, they feed, and they bring up their progeny, right? So that is a law of creation, beginning from the time of Lord Brahma. So a father's duty is to bring up his son until he's grown, and the son is grown up. It is a duty of the son to render service to the father. In human species, that's an important principle. So the son, the duty of the son. Important. Text 7. Text 8 now. Tad videhi namastubhyam karmashva idyatat shaktishu yad kridveha yaso visvak amutracha bhaved gati. O worshipful one, please give us your benediction for the execution of duty within our working capacity, so that we can follow it in life. Please mute, Prabhuji. Not so difficult to mute. Mute. Okay. Within our working capacity, so that we can follow it for the fame of his life and progress in the next. So he is saying, let us follow the execution of duty within our working capacity. So here Prabhupada is listing the different parampara, spiritual masters in this purport. right? So why? Because he's saying that Lord Brahma is a direct descendant, a direct recipient of Vedic knowledge from the Supreme Lord. And anyone discharging his entrusted duties in disciplic succession from Brahma is sure to gain fame in his life and salvation in the next. That means that if you're connected to this disciplic succession from Brahma, which is called Brahma Sampradaya, and how it descends down as follows. So the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna instructs Brahma, Brahma instructs Narada, Narada Vyas, Madhava Muni, then Padmanabha Narhari, Madhava Akshobhya Tirtha, Jayatirtha Jnana Sindhu, Dayanidhi Vidyanidhi Rajendra Jayadharma Purushottama, Brahmanya Tirtha, Vyasa Tirtha Lakshmipati Madhavendra Puri, then Ishwara Puri, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami and others. Then we have Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. Then Narottam Das Thakur. Then from Narottam Das Thakur, we have Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jagannath Das Babaji. Then Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Gokishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then we have our own illustrious Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada includes his own name. Now, there is an importance. We have to give clear, sometimes devotees, when we talk about philosophical issues and philosophical principles. Are you there with me, all of you? Are you falling asleep? You want a break?
Yes, we are here, Prabhuji.
Yeah, philosophical issues. Is we have to actually, Srila Prabhupada in a discussion may have said something to someone. And depending on the context, on the circumstances of the discussions. And those things are recorded. Those things are definitely recorded, and they're even transcribed. And then they are sometimes printed into a book form. My question to you all here, does whatever Prabhupada said to some devotees in a private discussion or in a small meeting, addressing certain management issues or certain principles of philosophy or practical application of philosophy, in his room with 3 or 4 devotees or privately talking in a morning walk, said something of some conclusive Siddhantic value? How do you compare the importance of those things to what Srila Prabhupada had actually written in his books and purport? In terms of the value and importance, or do you grade them differently, or you think all of Srila Prabhupada transcendental words have the same depth of importance or gravity of meaning?
Hare Krishna. Devotee speak. I don't want to speak first.
Okay, want me to speak first?
Please go ahead.
Okay, let me try. You know, Prabhupada's personal instructions for his devotees, you know, could be based more on administrative principles. You know, because administration is another thing entirely. You know, but whatever he wrote in his book, they both have the same gravity, but it's just the principles, because management is another aspect. So, and this has to be done with more intimacy, and then instructing his very close associates. That's my own opinion. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Tamal? Jyoti Swarup, why are you coming and going?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Where I was sitting, my battery is too low. So I just shifted to another place and put it on charging.
So you want to speak on this?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay. Someone else? Okay. Rasavan
Okay.
or Tambal, anyone? Just quickly.
Yes, yes. My little understanding is that it's like Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to the world, but he didn't give the practical application of the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Chaitanya came to give us the practical application of Krishna's words in the Bhagavad Gita. So I understand that Prabhupada's instructions to privately to his devotees is like the practical application in the contemporary world to his words in his books. This is the little understanding I have of these words.
Yes, partly true, but also Krishna does give everything in Bhagavad Gita too. Because he does say, one who chants my name constantly comes to me. He does say surrender to me. And he does say patram pushpam param toyam. And he does say namaskuru. And he does say who becomes dear to me, and so on and so forth. So yes, practical, sort of maybe extra details is given by Bhakti-rasa Amrita Sindhu or Nectar Devotion. But it doesn't quite address what I was asking.
Yes.
Let me quite address.
Let me respond to your question to us. All Prabhupada's statements, whether room conversation, letters, purports, are all important, but they are of different gravity and understanding when it comes to the Siddhanta, because the Prabhupada's purport gives the Siddhanta of the teachings of the Vedic scriptures as given in our tradition. But room conversations, letters to the individual devotees are not considered to be on the same level, because Prabhupada is speaking according to the consciousness of that particular person or people in that environment.
Right. Let's take it back and forward. Let's take it backward first. Let's go back to the times of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Whatever is recorded, it's all very official. Chaitanya Charitamrita narrates a beautiful discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Rupa Goswami as part of the teachings, and their official teachings. They form the basis of Nectar of Devotion to Lord Chaitanya and to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, and Vaishnava etiquette and all of that. But you see the pastimes that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has written about the past, there must have been so much more nectar, so much more pastimes between Lord Chaitanya and the different inhabitants of Jagannath Puri, say, for example, for he stayed there for 24 years. All right. But do we now, I mean, we don't have the recorded different small conversations when Lord Chaitanya is taking prasad at different people's homes and all of that. But what is the essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya is what is written down, what is spoken by him and written down. So similarly, whatever is spoken by Srila Prabhupada, but what is written down in his books, they become the law book of mankind. So whatever he's written down in terms of gravity of importance, weight and gravity, they are more important. So Srila Prabhupada could have said so many things about certain issues that are becoming, say for example, certain issues in ISKCON that are becoming of importance in society, and the GBC has to decide on certain rules and regulations, or decide on certain tenets, certain application. Then we have to go back to Srila Prabhupada books. And if there's a similar but divergent view on a Siddhanta topic, on Siddhanta, that he said in his discussions, and then something that is written in the book, same thing, and it seems like a little bit divergent, which one you're going to give more importance to? What is written in the book?
Yes.
It's written in the books. Okay, so we've done with that small exercise. Okay, so Prabhupada here puts his own name down. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So this is so important. So this line of disciplic succession from Brahma is spiritual, whereas the genealogical succession from Manu is material. So he's also giving two kinds of, there is what you call the genealogical succession from Manu, which means there's kind of a parampara, but it is, different kings coming down from one to the other. Like we can also see that sometimes the instructions are even coming from one king to the other. And where is that explained? In the Bhagavad Gita, Imam Vivashate Yogam Proktaha Mahavam Yayam. Right? I spoken to Sun God, and Sun God spoke to his son Ishvaku spoke to such and such, and it came down to that knowledge is spoken, but also it's spoken in the genealogical order. So, but which parampara order is given more importance? It is a Shiksha parampara or the Diksha parampara of Brahma. Not, there is a parallel coming down of Raja Rishi Sampradaya, but that is here is given more importance. Okay, so therefore you see Parikshit Maharaj, he becomes a recipient of Srimad Bhagavatam, but his name is not in the parampara. Right? Okay. So now text 9. So Brahma is speaking to Swambhuva Manu, because Swambhuva Manu actually said, instruct us, give us some seva, and we will see what to do for you, dear Pitaji. Brahma Vacha Pritastubhyam Aham Tat Swasti Stadvam Shitishwara Yan Nirya Nirvya Kilikena Vida Sadhimeti Atmanarpitam. Lord Brahma said, my dear son, O Lord of the world, I am very pleased with you, and I desire all blessings for you and your wife. You have, without reservation, surrendered yourself unto me with your heart for my illustrations. So yes, some creation was going on, but not going as fast as he meant. So now he has Swayambhuva who wants to do the service for his father. So Prabhupada is talking about the relationship of the father with the son. It's a sublime relationship. And the father is naturally disposed towards the son with goodwill. But in spite of the father's goodwill, the son is sometimes misguided. And this is we see here in this world. No? So if the son is unreservedly willing to be guided by the father is 10 times more eager to instruct. The father and son relationship is exhibited here in the dealings of Brahma and Manu, and it's excellent. So that's the father of man. I'm skipping few things because it's hard for me to read. The example of the father of mankind may be rigidly followed by mankind, and that will advance the cause of the relationships of fathers and sons. Swayambhuva Manu, being the father of mankind, is setting a very nice example. And therefore, when he writes the code of Manusmriti, he does talk about father and son relationship. And he himself, he became a recipient of those codes, and he became a very elevated person. Oh hero, your example is quite befitting a son in relationship with his father. This sort of adoration for the superior required. One who is beyond the limit of envy and who is sane, accepts the order of his father with great delight and executes it to his full capacity. So Brahmaji is very happy and he is saying his delight, because here in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that the previous sons of Brahma, Sanak Sanatan, Sanat, and Sanat Kumar, okay, he was not very happy with them before, neither Narad Muni, nor the Kumaras, nor Rudra. So this incident is very encouraging for him. Okay, so let's move on to text 11. Since you are my very obedient son, I ask you to beget children qualified like yourself in the womb of your wife. Rule the world in pursuance of the principles of devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus worship the Lord by performance of yajna. So he encouraged him to perform yajna and to pursue his seva for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord in devotional service. So here, let's read the purport. The purpose of the material, anyone can read the purport for me?
Okay. Okay, I can read.
The purpose
of, okay, go ahead, Madhuvan.
Okay. The purpose of the material creation by Brahma is clearly described herein. Every human being should beget nice children in the womb of his wife as a sacrifice for the purpose of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. In the Vishnu Puran, it is stated, Panashrama Charavata Purusena Para Puma Vishnu Dayate Pancha Nanyat Tatusa Ka Aranam. One can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, by proper discharge of principles of Varna and Ashram. There is no alternative to purifying the Lord by execution of the principles of Varnashram system. That's Vishnu Puran 3:8-9. Vishnu worship is the ultimate aim of human life. Those who take the license of married life for sense enjoyment must also take the responsibility to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. And the first stepping stone is the Varnashram Dharma system. Varnashram Dharma is a systematic institution for advancing in worship of Vishnu. However, if one directly engages in the process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it may not be necessary to undergo the disciplinary system of Varnashram Dharma. The other sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, directly engage in devotional service, and thus they had no need to execute the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Hare Krishna.
So interesting point Prabhupada is making here. If one is directly worshipping the Supreme Lord, then he need not worry about the institution of Varnashrama Dharma. So sometimes discussions are, we have to have Varnashram, we have to have Varnashram, we have to have Varnashram. Prabhupada said in the beginning, well, I didn't have Varnashram. It didn't stop me from engaging everyone in devotional service, and we did quite well in ISKCON. And Srila Prabhupada also, he talks about that. Because the worship of Lord Vishnu is the ultimate aim. Vishnu, Varnashramaacharavat Purushena Parahapumam. Vishnu Aradhyate Pantha. Pantha means this path. This path of Varnashram is to be able to properly execute worship of Lord Vishnu. But if someone is properly executing the path of Lord Vishnu, do we relegate him? If someone is a good devotee of the Lord, say for example, let's create a hypothetical situation. Let's create a hypothetical situation. And in certain region of the world, someone is trying to create an ashrama system. And we may have 10, 15, 20 people out of 50 or 60 who wants to be regulated according to Varnashram. And these 10 people, they're constantly chanting, worshipping the Supreme Lord, and they're happy in the service. They're doing whatever they can, and they're maintaining their lives very simply. One may be a gardener, the other may be a security man, or the other one can be a cow keeper and producing some wealth, and the other one can be a teacher and is reading Shastra and explaining to everyone. In this hypothetical situation, what do? We say, no, sorry, sir, go back and get in line with your duties of Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmana and start again? No, because the aim would be to be able to Vishnum Aradhyate, Purushena Paramahapumam Vishnu Aradhyate Pantha. The path has to lead to the worship of Lord Vishnu. But if the devotee is already worshipping Lord Vishnu, so therefore, if we sufficiently push the preaching and people chant and people follow the principles of Varnashram, right? So rudimentary levels of Varnashram can be adopted for producing of wealth, such as agriculture and cow keeping and so on and so forth. And people can work according to the means and measure to contribute to society. And therefore, the goals and aims of Varnashram will be established. So Prabhupada does say here, Varnashram is a systematic institution for worshipping of Vishnu. However, if one directly engage in the process of devotional service, it may not be necessary to undergo the disciplinary system of Varnashram Dharma. Very powerful statement that. Take note. So text 12. Okay. Param sushrushanam mahayam syat praja rakshaya nipa bhagavan ste praja bhartu rishikeso nutushyati. O king, you have, if you can give proper protection to the living beings in the material world, that will be the best of service for me. When the Supreme Lord sees you to be a good protector of the conditioned soul, certainly the master of the senses will be pleased with you. So he's asking Swayambhuva Manu to become the Samrat, to become a saintly king. He says, take the service and the duty of a Kshatriya. So he said, Rakshaya, Nipa, O king. So he's addressing him as a king, because he's actually understanding that Swayambhuva Manu is actually a king. So he's addressing him as king, and he's saying to him that you do the duty of protection of the different living beings in the material world. So then Prabhupada's in the purport, he's talking about the whole administrative system is arranged for the purpose of going back home, back to Godhead. Brahma is a representative of the Supreme Lord. Manu is a representative of Brahma. And all other kings on different planets of the universe are representatives of Manu. So they have to follow the codes that Manu followed. So Prabhupada talks about that being the Manu Samhita, which directs all activities toward the transcendental service of the Lord. So looking at this statement here, the law book for the entire human society is Manu Samhita, which directs all activities towards the transcendental service of the Lord. It is not a book that has rules and regulations to keep society in check per se, but to encourage everyone to move towards transcendental service of the Lord. And that was Brahma's clear instructions to Manu. So every king, therefore, must know that his responsibility in administration is not merely to exact taxes from the citizen, but to see personally that the citizens under him are being trained in Vishnu worship. Purushena Pumam. Upstairs it says Vishnu Aradhyate Pantha in the previous text. That is the purpose of the complete administrative system. But if the system can be implemented without that, because in a situation where we are living in a host, we are as a host in a system that is being managed by the government and by other administrative organization, and we are host, like for example, ISKCON is a host culture. in the mainstream culture of each and every country where it belongs to. Now, if we are promoting Krishna conscious culture and we are promoting devotional service, and people are coming, embarking on the boat of transcendental service to Krishna in the Krishna consciousness movement, then at which point do we or don't we influence mainstream society, being a host society? And this is actually where when devotees start to talk about varnashram, they're thinking that the majority of the population will not be able to embark on that boat of transcendental service to Krishna. But if they're not embarking on the boat of transcendental service to Krishna by implementing varnashram without the authority to organize society properly, how are we going to make the others follow varnashram? You follow me? You want to add something on it?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please,
Yes.
I want to repeat the last sentence you made now. The last sentence. I want to get it clearly.
The general population, if they're not on board the boat of transcendental service that is being offered to ISKCON, where we are worshipping the Supreme Lord, where we can directly be engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, being a host culture in the mainstream culture of society. And we have no influence on mainstream culture of society except by view of our preaching, book distribution, and so on and so forth. How is it practically possible for us to implement varnashram for mainstream society? And why should we waste our time doing it for our own sake? Well, in our host culture, in our culture of Krishna consciousness, in our culture of Bhakti, in our culture of temples and communities and everything, things are going on. Some people may be going slower, some people going faster, but things are going on in Krishna consciousness. Do we have to go back and realign everything back into varnashram? Prabhupada said, it didn't hamper me. So these two free verses is a very good argument about the need for Devi varnashram, the need for varnashram in society. All right? If we put more energy into preaching, teaching, and behaving properly according to the principles of the 5 angas of devotional service, we will do swellingly well. You see, the idea of sometimes, it always comes to the point of we have an argument with administration. It's always because we talk about it because the administration is not good. So therefore we say we should have an ashram. We should have proper Kshatriya temple president and proper brahmanas who are real brahmanas. And that's why we bring these points up. The Prabhupada talks about in this purport here, Prabhupada talks about Swayambhuva Manu being a perfect king. And he's a good king. So he says, therefore, you carry on promoting devotional service. So he says, by training the citizens in the devotional service of the Lord, the head of the state can be free in his responsibility. Otherwise, he will fail in the onerous duty entrusted to him and thus be punishable by supreme authority. So if you take into the small microcosm of a yatra of a temple, if the authority is not training the citizenry, which is the devotees in devotional service, right, then he will fail in his onerous duty entrusted to him and be punishable by the supreme authority. So you take the job of running the society. Prabhupada used to say it's a heavy responsibility, means also you can have very heavy punishments if you fail. And Prabhupada talking about it in the case of Swayambhuva Manu. Brahma being very happy with Swayambhuva Manu, and he's saying to him, if you actually do it very nicely, I'm very happy with you, the Lord very happy with you. Right? So let's move on. You get the gist of it? Yes, whatever.
Yes. What I think is that we as devotees, first of all, how to understand the Vanasham system, we have to practice it properly. And then that is what will help us now to propagate it or to extend it to the larger society. Otherwise, if we are not very good, then it will be difficult because you can only give what you have. You can only give what you have. So if we as devotees could not practice properly or couldn't understand the principles of Vanasham properly, then it will be difficult for us to propagate it and convince the entire world, to emulate.
But then we can implement it in our own host culture. We are host culture to main culture. The main culture of the Ghanaian or Nigerian society is holding. We are in there. We are feeding off it. We are working on it. We are using the roads. We are using the infrastructure. We are governed by their rules, and we drive according to the rules by the government. So we are host culture. But the thing is, if we want to implement Varnashram in our own system, it has to be reflected from the very first principles of proper governance and proper Brahman behavior and proper sannyas behavior and proper grihastha behavior and proper vanaprashta behavior and proper vanabrahmachari behavior. Right?
Yeah.
But you see, so it starts with good ashram training. Once you get the ashrams going nicely, then the varnas will follow. First is ashram. Because if one is following the rules of ashram correctly, then he will follow the rules of occupation correctly. So the ashram is first. If someone is if someone is a sannyasi and he's not following sannyasa ashram, then he will dabble with so many different things. And then it will impinge or it will influence his varna activities, which he really has no varna activities. So a grihastha, for example, he's not following his proper rules of grihastha ashram properly. Then the effect of his actions, right, will influence other people's occupation and actions and ashram. So therefore, ashram has to be trained properly. So if we had proper ashram training and good ashram behavior based on ashram principles, then varna is easier to follow on the varna.
Okay.
And we do not give much. Therefore, we mix everything together. So the path of varna and ashrama training is very important. Right? I'll give you a practical example. If we take the success of the Chowpatty temple, where was the emphasis laid? On the occupation of the interns, of the brahmacharis, of the temple residents, or on the ashram training of them? Where was the emphasis laid?
Ashram training.
Alika, answer.
Ashram training.
Ashram training. Then they had good ashram training. Now, some of them, very nicely trained. Some of them may be becoming writers. Some are becoming public performers. Now, those are varna duties. Some are developing eco-village. Some are running temples. Some are doing business. Some are preaching in colleges. So they have different occupational service, which is for the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. But the ashram training is the most important. So the ashram training, unless you give good ashram training, you're not going to have, because ashram training is based on what? It's based on, in Kali Yuga, it's based on Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padaseva. It's based on those things. And it's based on proper rules and etiquette of ashram. So that's a practical application. So that's what it is here. So he is saying to him, so he becomes a very good grihastha. And he has 2 nice sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and 3 nice daughters. And he marries them off very nicely. And he trains them up very nicely. And he's a very loving father. This is ashram duties. He's very loving father to Devahuti. And you will read about that in the next chapters to come. So text 13. Yesham natushto bhagavan yagya lingo janardanaha tesham shamo hi apartha yat atmana drito swayam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardana, is a form to accept all the results of sacrifice. If he is not satisfied, then one's labor for advancement is futile. He is the ultimate self, and therefore one who does not satisfy him certainly neglects his own interest. Right? So, Lord Krishna as Janardana, the maintainer of the people, he has to be satisfied, and therefore he will, in return, reciprocate with maintaining everyone nicely. So, in the purport, let's read this. Brahma is deputed by the Supreme Head of Universal Affairs, and he is in turn, he deputes Manu and others, chargés d'affaires, in the material creation. But the whole show is for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Brahma knows how to satisfy the Lord, and similar persons engaged in the line of Brahma's plan of activities know how to satisfy the Lord. So the Lord is satisfied by the process of devotional service, consisting of the ninefold process, hearing, chanting, etc. So it is one's own self-interest to execute prescribed devotional service, and anyone who neglects this process neglects his own self-interest. Everyone wants to satisfy his senses, but above the senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence. Above the intelligence is the individual self, and above the individual self is the super soul or the super self. So even above the super self is the Supreme Lord, Vishnu Tattva, the primeval Lord and the cause of all causes, Sri Krishna. So this complete process of perfectional service is to render service for the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of Lord Krishna, who is known as Janardana. Okay, so far, this protect the people and please the Lord, or else one's effort is useless in 12 and 13. Okay, so then Manu sees a situation that is a little bit unusual. Okay, he sees a very unusual situation and he addresses it. So he says, Manu speaks to Lord Brahma. He says, Manurvacha adesheham bhagavato vateryami asuddhana sthanam hi ihanujanti janiti prajanam mamacha prabho. Hey, Manu is saying, all-powerful Lord, O killer of all the sins, I shall abide by your order, but now please let me know my place and that of the living entities born of me. So he says, give me my place of responsibility, my place of residence, my place of execution of service. O Master of the demigods, please attempt what has happened here, and is indirectly mentioned in this verse. O Master of the demigods, please attempt to lift the earth, which is merged in the great water, because it is the dwelling place of all living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by the mercy of the Lord. So this great water is actually the Garbha of the ocean, which half fills the universe, and the earth planet is submerged in there. So this is an incident that propitiates the appearance of Lord Varaha. So the Maitreya Rishi is speaking now. He says, Parameshti tapam madhye tathasanam avekshagam katham menam sanyudesya iti dadyodiyak chiram. Maitreya said, just seeing the earth merged in the water, Brahma gave his attention for a long time on how it could be lifted. He's asked Swambhuva to populate the earth, but the earth is down there. Right? So this is where this incident is coming to life. And Brahma gave his attention for a long time, and he couldn't figure it out. How am I going to lift this earth planet? Now, in this purport, and we'll probably end here, in this purport, according to Jiva Goswami, the topics delineated here of different millenniums. The present topics of Svetavaraha millennium, the topics regarding the Chakshusha millennium will also be discussed in this chapter. So, do you follow this?
Yes.
Okay. And I think I had explained that before in the class too. Srijato Mishitir Varvi Plavyamanam Rasham Gata Athatra Kim Anustheyam Amashvi Sarvayojita Yasyaham Hidayadasham Saisho Vidadattume. Brahma thought, while I have been engaged in the process of creation, the earth has been inundated by deluge and has gone down into the depths of the ocean. What can we do who are engaged in this matter of creation? It is best to let the Almighty Lord direct us. So they have full faith in the Lord, and therefore they're praying to the Lord. So let's say it. O sinless Vidura, all of a sudden, while contemplating like this, while Brahma was engaged in thinking, a small form of bow came out of his nostrils. The measurement of the creature was more than upper portion of a thumb. Now this is happening in Svetavaraha Kalpa. And therefore Jiva Goswami is saying the narration is confused between two different timelines. One timeline is Svetavaraha Kalpa, the beginning of the dawn of creation, first day. And the earth being knocked, I'm going ahead a little bit of the verses. The earth being knocked out of its orbit by a demon. That happened in Chakshusha Manvantara. When Hiranyakashipu came for the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So the Svetavaraha that come out of the nostrils of Lord Brahma, that was in the beginning of the creation. So there is a kind of a mixing of the timeline of these two pastimes of the Lord here. That's what Jiva Goswami had commented, that there is appearance of Varaha, Svetavaraha, the white Varaha, at the time of Svetavaraha Kalpa, in the very first millennium. But this one here, this Swayambhuva Manu is appeared at the time of Chakshusha Manvantara. And here, the earth planet has been knocked. So when he's talking about the earth being submerged, it is actually in the beginning, not at the time of Swayambhuva Manu. So the narration is a little bit intertwined, and therefore it becomes difficult to understand it. But then Jiva Goswami comes to the rescue, and he said that these two pastimes happened at two different times, and the narration is just being intertwined. You follow me?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So while Brahma was engaged in thinking, a small form of bow came out of his nostril. The measurement of the creature was not more than the upper portion of a thumb, like this. And then what happened? Text 19. O descendant of Bharata, while Brahma was observing, that bow became situated in the sky in a wonderful manifestation, as gigantic as a great elephant. So that bow took a very gigantic proportion and becomes situated in the sky. So this becomes the appearance of Lord Varaha. But then that's the Sveta Varaha, white bow. And the Varaha Dev described that comes and fight with Hiranyaksha is a red bow. Okay? But like I said, the narration is intertwined. I'm not saying confused. The Supreme Lord and his devotees are not confused. Sometimes they make these. So we stopped here at the verse 19. Okay. And then the text 20 to 27, Brahma and the sages wandered. Then Lord Varaha and the sages were glorified. So then from 20 onwards to please read them. Text 20 to 40. Okay. At these 15, 20 verses, you can read them. So then it describes, here it first describes the pastimes of Sweta Varaha in Swayambhuva Manvantara, okay, which is 16, 17, which we just read, up to 19. Then further on, it will be more descriptions of the Sweta Varaha in Swayambhuva Manvantara, and we go on to the text 30. So please read this. And then from 31 to 33, there'll be pastimes of Nila Varaha in Chakshusha Manvantara. So there's two pastimes described here of Varahadev appearance. So that's why the chapter is very aptly named, The Appearance of Lord Varaha. And it narrates the appearance in two different Manvantara. Because what is important is not the chronology. We're not studying history. We're studying the pastimes of the Lord. So what is important is the appearance of Lord Varaha. Okay? So the history may be intertwined or timeline may be superimposed, but we're studying the pastimes of the appearance of Lord Varaha. And by Krishna's mercy, we get to hear about the appearance of Lord Varaha in two different times. Sweta Varaha Kalpa, and then in the Chakshusha Manvantara. So please read this up to text 35 or more. Okay? And then we will discuss this tomorrow, same time. This common time, and we will start. So you have any questions or comments? I will end the class here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Madhavan Prabhu, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to know, because we have two sets of sons now, or children. We have the Kumaras. Oh God. So we have the four Kumaras, and then we have the Swayambhuva Manu and the wife. From the narration, we can see that Lord Brahma was very pleased with the Swayambhuva Manu. So how did the Kumaras, how did they satisfy their father? Or is just because he wasn't happy as they disobeyed him? But ultimately, they worship the Supreme Lord. But I want a little bit explanation. How they two were able to satisfy their father? Or to please
They're actually an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. They have their own will and desire. They're actually the incarnation of the Jnana potency of the Lord, the kind of Shakti Avesh avatar, and the incarnation of the knowledge potency of the Lord. And they have their own mission in the world. And they appeared out of their own free will in that sense. So even Lord Brahma may see them as their son. They didn't act like this, his son. They acted like completely independent because they were dependent on the mercy of the Lord and they wanted to serve the Supreme Lord. So say, for example, we get a son and he is just like this is the same story that happened with Shukadev Goswami. So there's a very interesting parallel between Shukadev Goswami, who appeared as son to Vyasadeva. And he was also situated in Brahman. He had full Brahman realization. In the same way as the four Kumaras, they have full Brahman realization. So they have no tinge of identification with the body. They have no existence, appreciation of existence of their senses and their mind and their intelligence being separate from the interest of the Lord. How do you engage someone like that into avidya? How do you engage someone like that who's completely transcendentally pure? It's impossible.
It's not possible. It's not possible.
Even in the story of Mirabai, Mirabai was married to a king. And he told the king, he said, you know, during the daytime, everyone can see me as your wife, but I'm married to Girdhar. I'm married to Giridhari. I'm married to Lord Krishna. So they may see me as your queen, but I'm actually wife of Krishna. So then how can we engage in anything other than the transcendental relationship? And therefore the Rana, the king, actually was very respectful to Mirabai, and he would actually treat Mirabai as his guru. So because of the exalted position of the four Kumaras, we have to see that the primary relationship of our exalted relation, the primary relationship is our exalted relationship with Krishna, and that is given precedence in importance to meaning. So therefore, he may have temporarily been upset about this, but he soon realized that these are great souls. So just like Narada Muni, right? So you have to see it from different angles and the transcendental nature of these four personalities. They were in transcendence. Why do we bring someone down from transcendence and says, oh, why don't you double weave a little bit of Prakriti and Guna? Can't do that. Okay? Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Rasavan, happy to hear.
Yes. Please, I want you to, I plead with you to explain this scenario of pure devotees to my proper understanding. For instance, in the assembly of the great sages at the bank of the Ganga, where Sukadeva Goswami spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parashit Maharaj, there were great sages like Vyasadeva himself who enlightened the Sukadeva Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There was Narada Muni who was also there, and they were all sitting hearing from Sukadeva Goswami. Now, in this scenario that we are taking now, the intimacy between Krishna and Vidura was far established, though when he was serving in the house of Dasarastra, Krishna loved Vidura so much that he puts his lotus feet on his laps.
Yeah.
Vidura also loved Krishna so much, overwhelmed with love, that sometimes while peeling banana, he gives the banana shells to Krishna, and Krishna accepts. Even after that, Vidura went in pilgrimages where he visited so many holy places. If we say in terms of purification, he has become so purified.
Yes.
Now again, he has come to Maitreya to be more enlightened. Could you take us? And though we know Krishna is unlimited.
I can get you. It's like I can get the gist of your answer, of your question. It's like Vyasadeva instructed Bhagavatam to Sukadeva Goswami, and Vidura had more intimate relationship with Krishna. How come he is now even more than Maitreya had with Krishna, but now he is being instructed? Now the idea is we follow the parampara system. And even if someone is by birth a pure devotee of the Lord, he will take initiation from a spiritual master. And to further that angle of understanding, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram went to Sandipani Muni's school in Avantikapuram.
Yeah.
So the principle of taking Diksha and learning from the spiritual master is a non-negotiable principle in Vedic culture. Even though Sukadeva Goswami appreciation of Srimad Bhagavatam was even higher to a point that even Narada Muni came to hear. And all the elite of the universe came to hear from him. Why? Because Bhagavatam is not spoken. It's not spoken just by, Bhagavatam is not just spoken by just reading the verses. Bhagavatam is not just like, okay, I read the verse and I repeat the verse of Sukadeva Goswami and I repeat the verse of Maitreya and Vidura. But the proper explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam is yata aditam tathamati. According to the realization of the speaker, it is presented. So it is not a verbatim literary repetition of what is written in the verses in the purport. Even now, we could just sufficiently read Prabhupada's verse translation and Prabhupada's purport. Then what would be their need for having a teacher? Because the teacher, he sees the student and the recipients of this message in a certain way, and he explains it for their right understanding. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I follow you clearly.
Yeah. So this is a principle, because the knowledge is not coming from the knowledge is being transmitted. It is received from the guru, who is repeating the knowledge of the book. And the knowledge is integrated and assimilated in the heart of the disciple who's hearing. And the assimilated knowledge, the swadhyay,
Blackout. I think maybe Prabhu's light went off or something. I think his light went off. So continue the bhajan a little bit and wait for him to see if it comes back.
Prabhuji, you are muted. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, you are muted. Sorry.
it went off a little bit. So it says, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya Bahuna Shrutena. That we don't obtain this knowledge by various expert explanations or by various types of hearing. What does that mean? This Katha Upanishad verse 212. What does that mean? That if we hear this knowledge, if we read it, the direct meaning, we won't understand it? No, we won't. Because you have to be chosen by the Supreme Lord to be able to understand. And how are we chosen by the Supreme Lord? By showing our sense of surrender to the pure devotee, to the Guru. Then the Lord actually instructs us from inside. So this process of hearing is an external process. The internal process is the mercy of the Guru who is instructing us. Right?
Yeah.
So you get the gist of it, or
Yes. I could relate it to this Deshamivanu Karpatam verse, where Krishna says he enlightens from within. So
he enlightens those that he chooses himself. And who does he choose? Those who are like Vidura. Yes. He didn't choose Dhritarashtra, but the mercy of Vidura was said that Vidura also chose Dhritarashtra to enlighten him. And he chose Uddhava even more than Maitreya, right? But then Maitreya, out of the dint of having his wonderful association with so many great sages, he also was able to speak that, right? And Krishna made a special concession for him, and he said, no, he will speak to you, Vidura. He said, you hear from him. Because Vidura wanted to hear from Uddhava. And he said, no, this is Maryada Vratikrama. He's older than you. So, you can't hear from Uddhava. So you hear from Maitreya. Because of his humility, an acceptance of hearing from Maitreya, which was arranged by Krishna. And he was very happy to hear that Krishna was thinking of him at the time of his departure. He surrendered to Maitreya, went and searched for him, and then he was hearing from him. And he was inspired to hear from him. So similarly, Sukadeva Goswami was speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam in the assembly of the great sages and so many wonderful personalities, and even to the point that Vyasa and Narada were inspired to hear. Because the inspiration to hear is coming from the mood of the devotee. So that's why mechanically presenting the purport and mechanically talking about the verses can be done by anyone, can be done by a 10-year-old bhakta in the temple, but doesn't have the same effect.
Exactly.
Salika Prabhu, you there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Because the realization of Sukadeva Goswami was so much higher. So he's saying the same message of Bhagavatam and he's explaining it in so much more effective manner. So we'll stop here. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your time. We really appreciate this particular section. Ordinarily, looking at the state of your health, it is enough reason to not be here for this class. But despite all of that, you took the austerity to come to us. And you ended the class on a very good note, which is synonymous to what is happening here today, because the Lord chooses in his heart who to inspire to inspire other devotees. We are very blessed and fortunate to be hearing from you. And one of the reasons I requested in the beginning that we wanted to hear an overview of the last chapter. We thank you so much, Prabhuji, and we pray that Guru and Krishna will continue to bless you with wisdom and a proper health to continue to speak Krishna to us through your heart. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Yeah,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram,
Hare Ram, Hare.
Vanchakarpata Rubyas Chak, Krivasya Patitana Pavashnevyo Vaishnavyo. Nantakuti Vaishnava Vindir Ki Jai.
Tomorrow same time.
Yeah, Adwaita Krishna.